The People's Platform.
A very good evening and welcome to the People's Platform. I'm Niresh Eliyatambi. Sri Lanka's economy is highly dependent on the small and medium business ventures of this country, from family-run shops to factories which employ up to 500 people. They are what keeps the country's economy ticking. But they are under enormous strain right now, which has exacerbated due to the VAT increase. To tell us more about this situation and all the other challenges that the SME sector is facing, we have today Tania Abeysundara, chairperson of the Ceylon United Business Alliance. Welcome, Tania.
Welcome, Naresh. Thank you for having me back again. Thank you very much.
Lovely to have you here. And with the sharp increase in VAT, which came on the 1st of January, what impact has it had on the SME sector?
Naresh, this is a very long way of explaining. I mean, there are various impacts. Okay, if you were to take, now I represent the manufacturing industry. Maybe it doesn't affect us mainly because from 15 to 18 is only 3%, you will call it, a lot of people. But the difference is there are lots and lots of items that has gone up by 0 to 15. Now, these items indirectly affect us, especially the fuel. Fuel from 0 to 18% is a huge impact. Now, every industry, fuel is a very essential major component because vehicles to everything you need fuel. Then add to that, there are lots of items from 0 to consumer products, from rice to dal to all that, electrical equipment, mobile phones. So all this calculated together, the economy itself is getting shrunk back again because of the inflation and suppressing the economy from 2022 July, after calling the country bankrupt, has been the biggest impact on us. Because if I were to evaluate what to then to now, it's a downfall, not an uphill. With the crisis, with the corona, with the pandemic situation and the attack, we still survived up to 2022 July. It is after July that the downfall of this country really occurred. Till then we managed to survive because through and through there were hard falls, and a calamity that was created, I would call, that was something that was not there, that was created. All this fuel crisis, the electricity crisis, everything was created. I think it was a creation done for a reason. That is my belief. This is an individual belief. So suddenly, after change of governing bodies really, and a new governor comes in, when the country is called bankrupt, and when we get 300 million from the IMF, the country is no longer bankrupt, and we are in debt for 100 billion USD. So how does this all come together? And with all that, still the country having 300 million, it's no longer bankrupt, and we have become a nation that has been pushed to unorthodox taxes, unprecedented decisions in every action. And this is a volatile situation created by the government, where we have been facing due to unprecedented decisions taken by the governor, the central bank, the governing bodies by themselves over and over and over again, Niresh.
So give us an overview of what the SME sector entails. How many people are employed totally? How many businesses?
Yes. Now, if you were to take the SME, like I have been always saying, we contribute 52% of the country's GDP. We host nearly 4.5 million workforce. That's a huge number. And mind you, out of these 4.5 million, a lot of them are now out of work. Due to the doing of the governing decisions. And then if you were to take The entire workforce in this country is about 8 billion. Out of that, 1.6 is about government servants. The big companies would hold about 2.3. The rest comes under SMEs, MSCs, and the micro and all that. So all put together, it's about 4.5 million workforce. So we contribute we house the biggest number of workforce in this country. So that itself, the government should take it into consideration, and then these MPLs that has gone through from, if you were to take year by year, in 2019 the MPL amount in this country was 112 billion.
Non-performing
loans. MPL means non-performing. Today it's 1.3 trillion. So really, even in 2021, before the country was called bankrupt, the MPL was around 600 billion. So 600 billion to 1.4 trillion. What? After calling the country bankrupt, this is that within that period of 1 year. So where has it gone wrong? Is it gone wrong due to the entrepreneurs' wrong decisions on business management, or the government's wrong decision on managing the government?
Now, the SME sector was already under a huge strain during the COVID years, and it was just coming out of it when this bankruptcy disaster hit.
Yes. That is another very good point, Naresh, because when the East attack came in and the COVID soon after that was a huge impact on the business itself. But with the government at that time taking some sort of decisions over trying to protect the SMEs by giving moratorium and giving loans on low interest, we got some sort of breathing space. So these were all okay when the country opened back in 2020 and 2021 beginning. So when we opened the country in 2021, we had issues, but we managed to, do our businesses and try to fulfill the bridge that we lost within that period of 1 year, when we were trying to breathe and we were just trying to get these businesses focused and on the right direction. It is the time we had huge effects, because at that time we had loans taken at interest rates of 9% to 11%. These loans were taken before even the Easter attack. So just imagine loans taken at 9% to 11%. Soon after, when the country was called bankrupt, we had to pay every month. There was an increase after July to 12 to 15 to up to 30%.
When you say loans taken, is it for operating capital or to set up businesses, and what kind of do small businessmen mortgage their homes, their vehicles? How does that work?
So these loans, for 90% of these loans are taken for setting up businesses, as working capital or expansion of businesses. So they never expected a Easter attack, a corona pandemic. So nobody expected. So really, that's what I said. In 2019 MPL, the non-performings were only 112.7 billion. That itself is evidence to show the SMEs are the biggest component who has taken banking facilities as loans to set up their businesses, because no matter what, end of the day, how much project reports you give the bank, you need collateral to get funding. So collateral is 90% of the time, Niresh, either it's your house or it's your building or it's your land or that a house you bought for your child or something like that. So what have we done? We are trying to support the government's economy by risking our own finances, our own properties. And we were doing well. Now, that's what I'm trying to show you. In 2019, MPL rate was only 12.7 billion. In 2023, after calling the country bankrupt, we are 1.3 trillion.
So it's 10 times as much.
Yes, so who is supposed to blame for the situation?
Now, has your sector had discussions with the central bank, with the finance ministry? What's been going on?
We have had multiple, not only us, so many organizations had multiple decisions with the central bank to not to take unorthodox decisions just because of putting IMF in as a shield guard to say everything the IMF is doing, saying is what we do. First thing the IMF said was to downsize the government, cut down on government expenditure, because 51% of our GDP goes for government expenditure. And if you start paying loans, it's 61%. So 61 and 51 is more than our GDP. It's 12%. So, so other 12% again we will be borrowing just to maintain a government, not for infrastructure, not the development, not for SME, not for health, nothing.
But the government hasn't decreased its expenditure at all over the years, not in the recent budget either. How does your sector feel about it?
This is what we are saying. I mean, people make decisions looking at themselves. I mean, all these decision makers have never cut down on any of their expenses or any of their lifestyles, or I mean, they don't have liabilities as such. It's the people who contribute towards the country's economy is going through this. They are the people with liabilities. They are the people with stress. They are the people with all the heartaches and heartburns of the decisions makers' decisions. But none of these people who make the decisions and implement decisions go through any of these, because our taxpayers' money is benefited for their lifestyles.
So there's a lack of sensitivity on the part of the political leaders.
Absolutely. It's an understatement to say lack of sensitivity. I would say it is trying to contribute. It's a murdering an economy by itself. That means murdering a country. I mean, economical murder this is.
Strong words indeed.
I mean,
probably,
it is strong words.
Probably, yeah.
Niresh, I am a business entity. I mean, I know the sufferings I go through because our production has gone down by 51%. But our liabilities have gone up by 300%. How are we going to bridge this? With the high taxes, high utilities and bank interest and all this. Why? And end of the day, everything is put on a platform to say we are doing all this to protect the banking sector. Have you heard anywhere in the world, Niresh, where the bankers borrow depositors' money to give loan? It is never the case. All this money is borrowed was given back to the government because the treasury bills went up into 30%. So the banks took deposit money at 22%, gave it to the treasury, made 8% profit within your money. They had not given the money to us. They have given the money back into the government. So the government is saying to pay these loans within the country also, you need money for the government. So they are taxing the employment in this country for their benefit.
What about the recent issue which has come up on parate execution by the banks?
Very good question you asked. Why has the parate execution? That's what I'm trying to say. Parate execution is on non-performing loans. Why do people go on non-performing? Because, I mean, there's this platform saying the crib. Whenever we get a loan, it doesn't matter any loan, the evaluation point is the crib. So you go into the crib saying that you are a borrower. So when you are in the crib, that is the evaluation point for another financial entity to finance you back again to say how you perform. So if within 90 days, if you are not performing, you go into non-performing. That's MPL. So when you're MPL on the crib, no financial institution would touch it. Now we as SMEs, because we are not multinational companies where we have got government loans through a government property and we don't have international funding and to set up our businesses. So we have funded our businesses through our own funding, own our money, and keeping our properties as collateral into a banking institute. So when the bank says we are not touching you, where are we going to get money to run our businesses? So if the government, the central bank's decision has killed the business sector, SME, generally if you were to take the SME work establishments, there was close about 1 million SMEs, where it has come down to nearly 300,000 SMEs now. So all these SMEs closing up means everybody is going into the crib as non-performance. So if you go into the crib, then another financial institute would never touch you. So if you are not getting financial funding, Niresh, how are we to run a business? Where are we going to get the fund?
That's certainly something to think about. We now head to a short commercial break, so don't go away.
The People's Platform.
TV1. TV for life.
Excess power generated in the north to be sold. CEB workers take to the streets against proposed electricity bill. Will Sri Lanka dissolve parliament or hold elections?
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරීමේ බලය දැන් ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ඕනම වෙලාවක තිබෙනවා. දැන් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ නම් එහෙම යෝජනාවක් ගහලා නැහැ. පාර්ලිමේන්තුව කල් තැබීම පිළිබඳ යම් අදහසක් පැතිරී යනවා.
Navy captures fishing boat with 240 kilograms of narcotics in Gaul. Sri Lanka-Zimbabwe ODI series begins tomorrow. Pathum will lose the series.
TV1. TV for life.
නව වසරක්, නව නායකත්වයක්, නව ජයග්‍රාහී ගමනක්. ශ්‍රී ලංකා සිම්බාබ්වේ එක්දින සහ T20 ක්‍රිකට් තරගාවලිය. ජනවාරි 6 වෙනිදා සිට 18 වෙනිදා දක්වා පිටිය වටකොට නැගෙන ජයගොස සජීවීව විඳින්න. TV1 නාලිකාව සමග රැඳෙන්න.
මම දැන් ඉන්නේ සීරු අඩියක.
මට කරන්න පුළුවන් උදව්වක් මම ඕනම වෙලාවක මහත්ය වෙනුවෙන් කරනවා.
ඔය ලොයිට් කරදර කරන භූතාත්මය අල්ලලා බෝතලයකට දැම්මලුනේ. එච්චර දාරන්තුනේ.
මෙසින මැඩම්ගේ කරදරයක් නැද්ද දැන් සර්?
නෑ. දැන් ඒ ගැන බය වෙන්න කිසිම දෙයක් නෑ. ආයතනයක ප්‍රධානියෙක් තමන්ගේ සේවකයන්ගේ ගෙවල් ගාන යන්නේ නෑ.
අභිමන් නැවිල්ලා.
අභිමන් නැවිල්ලා? දැන් කොහෙද?
නීල පබලු අද රාත්‍රී 9ට සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්. The People's Platform.
Welcome back. You're with the People's Platform. Our guest is Tania Abeysundara, chairperson of the Ceylon United Business Alliance. Now, Tania, we were speaking about parate execution, which is something which is relatively new. Over the last few months, it's been happening. So how does this work? A small business has to close down or basically can't repay its loan. And after 90 days or whatever, and the businessman still can't do it. Perhaps he's had discussions with his bank, but it's not working out. And then the banks have the power to come and take the collateral, which could be a property or a vehicle or something else, perhaps the business premises. How does that work?
Let me explain the parate law itself. It's a Roman Dutch law where it's never been even practiced in any of those countries no longer. So this law was really brought upon to this country in 1990 to protect the three government banks, that is by People's Bank, Bank of Ceylon and National Savings Bank. So what happens are these banks, the heads of the banks are always appointed through the government. So they wanted to protect the bank because they brought in this law, say thinking that they as favors can lend funding to people they know, and this money cannot be got back into the bank. That's why they bought this Parate law for these banks. But in 1999, all the commercial banks also wanted this law for their protection. But it was never the issue for the business entities in this country, because 90% of the business entities never went into a Parate action. Only a very minor segment went into, because all this Parate law that people knew about it, but they never took it into consideration because they knew they are never going to go into that situation. So somebody who has really totally mismanaged their businesses due to their total negligence only had Parate action been taken. So it was a very minor segment that was not even heard of. But what happened was after Corona and the Easter bomb attack, with different sectors, first the hospitality, then the construction, different industries started collapsing little by little, and they went into, like I explained in the previous round, into non-performing due to the country's situation, not due to doings of the business itself. Then only at that time the previous government gave a moratorium, came up with the idea of moratorium, and then they came up with a loan at 4% interest. So this loan, when a lot of people, 90% of the businesses got to enjoy this loan at 4% because that was a very great decision taken at that time. So what happened was, a lot of people tried to turn around their businesses with this 4% loan, but still the moratorium was existence. So some paid the loan. The interest component of the loan, they kept on facilitating the interest, but there are people who didn't facilitate the interest plus the loan both. So these people really fell into problems, especially there are hospitality industry, construction industries of that nature really fell into problems, because those industries were really totally killed. Because of the dollar going up and restrictions on so many items being imported into this country, import restrictions, all this affected. So these entities, when the governor called the country bankrupt, and the loans suddenly from 9% loans from people who had taken 9% to 11% went up to 20-30%. They had to pay their interest back again. So this is the time they really got stuck. And if you are taken, we say 50 billion loan, and just imagine if you had to facilitate the interest plus the capital, and accumulated into 1.5 years, 2 years not paid interest and capital at the rate of 20, 21, 22, 23, 27%. If they have accumulated the interest, and if they have made, just imagine your capital now is more than the loan you acquired.
Now, how much are these loans generally? You spoke of 50 million, but it could be much less. It
I'm just saying,
3 million.
Yes.
What is the range?
But
typically?
Of course, the government has given a proposition, anything below 5 million loans, there is a lot of grace period, and up to now you cannot go on to Parate action. It is bigger properties. You are touching the bigger properties. Bigger properties means the really SMV, the big SMVs. So these are the real backbone of the country, backbone of the economy. So if you start acquiring these properties, just imagine nearly end of the period, there will be, now up to now the government has acquired 1,180 properties.
The banks have acquired.
Banks have acquired. The banks have acquired up to 3,800 billion. But our MPL right now stands at 1.4, nearly 1.4 trillion. So with the current situation, because the darker times are ahead after April. Mind you, after April, even the, I represent the garment industry. We are even 51% of our consumer market has dropped. Our productivity has dropped by 51%. So after April, how are we going to face? So we will also, now at least we are managing to run our businesses. If we also start going into MPL, the MPL amount will nearly come to about 2 trillion. So is the government going to acquire all these properties through Paratha law then? The banks, not the government, banks. This is where the central bank should intervene, because the monster was created by the central bank putting up the treasury bills to 30%, where it was not necessary at that time. It was totally not necessary because the government wanted money. They took people's money and the banks reinvested on treasury bills.
So when you say the monster was let out by the central bank, you are saying that if the interest rates had not gone up to 30% or so, this calamity would never have happened to the small and medium sector.
Yes, Niresh, because this wouldn't have never been the case, because generally any bank cannot lend through depositors' money. That is not heard of. That is a total crap I'm talking. Banks should be lending. They should go into the stock market and go into open. That is how the banks earn money in the international. The banks are in the stock market, so they sell their stocks. Within that money what they bringing into the bank only, they invest.
Raising funding and
reinvesting through lending. But you don't take depositors' money and lend to customers. That is not, if a bank is going to do that, even I can start a bank tomorrow. I can start a bank and get money coming into my bank through depositors, and I can start lending. That is not the bank's parameter. So that itself doesn't come into the reality of banking. So that you are cutting the norm. So here what really happened was, the truth behind is the banks invested on the central bank's treasury bills. Because out of the banking sector, there are even public institutes that bought treasury bills. So all this was, that's what I said, a monster was created through the central bank. This central bank, why was the treasury bills taken up to this amount? That should be asked from the governor.
So once a small business is acquired and the owner doesn't have any more assets, or he has very few assets, and he's been blacklisted on the crib, he's got very little future here. So he would probably look at migrating with his family, which would lead to a massive brain drain and the destruction of the entrepreneurial spirit. Am I correct?
Absolutely. What has happened is, Naresh, for them to do that, even if they don't have funding, they can't migrate. But the youth will migrate. Somehow their children will migrate. The brain drain, the youth, the youth of this country is the treasure of this country. They will migrate. So who will remain is the older people who has lost their businesses, who will be mentally and physically sick due to the situation they have been put into, the plight they have been put into. So end of the day, we will have a mentally deranged nation due to a situation created by the government themselves. Just imagine how much of stress people are going through today.
Frightening thoughts indeed. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for you today. Our thanks to our guest, Tania Abeysundara, chairperson of the Ceylon National Businesses Alliance, for these excellent insights which have really shed light on a terrible situation. Do stay tuned for Primetime News, which is coming up next. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.